All right, so the U.S. once again 2-0 victors over Bolivia in Arlington, Texas, in front of a crowd of, I believe, 48,000 is the official number.
Hey.
So a pretty decent crowd there, although in a stadium of 100,000, that's still less than half full. But nevertheless, the U.S. taking home 3 points and a good moment to evaluate individual performances. We're going to go line by line here, okay? Ale, you were a striker. You've been assigned midfielders.
Yes.
But other than that, we're sticking to it, okay? So Casey, as our resident goalie expert, is going to evaluate Matt Turner. How he's going to do that, I'm not very sure.
This is the easiest grade.
Touch the ball. So, Casey, what do we think of Turner's performance today?
Yeah, Matt was fine, 6.5. Just what did he have to do? You know, I thought he read the game well for the little things he had to do. No real issues. Never really challenged. You know, maybe could have a couple passes out of the back, but I don't care about that. I mean, really, he didn't put his team under any undue duress. What he needed to do, he did fine. So, yeah, just did what he needed to do. Didn't really have much to do and did that not much fine.
Casey, would you like to see him get some more work, given the fact that we haven't seen him really too much at the club level?
Look, every goalkeeper wants to have that game like today. I would much rather be congratulating my defenders for defending well and my forwards for putting a bunch of balls in the back of the net than me having to make a bunch of saves. So I would much rather see this type of performance from Matt through the whole tournament. Yeah, there will be more difficult days for him as this tournament progresses, and then we'll have to assess on that. But it was a great bounce back from the difficult game against Colombia to the Brazil game, and I think that gave him a lot of confidence coming into the tournament. And today was just one of those days that you just don't want to, you know, without much to do, you just don't want to come for a cross that's not yours and be flapping on it and scuff a couple balls out of the back and put your team under undue pressure. So I think overall, yeah, he did what he needed to do today.
All right, so Casey giving Matt Turner a 6 for his performance against Bolivia, a rather quiet performance. What about the back line? Probably a quiet performance for them too, but some individuals who we had an eye on based on kind of the opportunities they were given, especially Joe Scally.
Yeah, I originally said an 8, but I think it would be between a 7 and an 8 because, yes, they had no real threat. There was a solid performance, the shifting, the timing, you know, the outside backs getting forward. And I think the connection between, you know, Richardson and Tim Ream was fine. The countermeasures were great. They kept it safe. There was really no real threat. I do think that Scally, when he went forward into the second half, was performing a lot better, getting into the attack, creating opportunities, and he didn't necessarily do that in the beginning. Robinson was great. Anthony Robinson, excuse me. He went forward, he got crosses in, the distribution was good, he created a lot of the chances. He was probably one of the best players, along with Pulisic. And yeah, Richards and Ream, I mean, they kept it simple, solid defensively. Yes, made a few mistakes, that's why they didn't get, you know, any higher than an 8.
That's tough. So the teacher gives you an 8, and then brings it back to a 7 or a 6. I would not have wanted to be in Miss Krieger's class at any point in my academia.
They didn't really have to do much. It's like, listen,
yes, it's hard to rate.
Countermeasures, keep it safe. It's hard to rate.
But with the ball, there were some kind of sketchy moments. Yeah?
There were. The distribution wasn't perfect. The connecting of the passes wasn't perfect. They need to definitely tidy that up against Panama because they will get beat on you know, when Panama regains the ball and transitions. But other than that, I mean, there really wasn't anything to be worried about.
All right, for those of you who have scoured Alejandro Moreno's Wikipedia page.
Wow.
You probably dug deep enough to know that he did very briefly, according to his national team manager in Venezuela anyway, play as a right midfielder for the Columbus
Wait, he played as a right midfielder for Venezuela?
Yes, and then got into a very important game for Venezuela as a right midfielder as a result.
I'm not telling you guys stories.
So with all that midfield experience that you clearly have, that was seen in international scouting, give us your midfield ratings here for the United States midfield against Bolivia.
It doesn't take a midfield expert to know that there was nothing to do in this game for the midfield. It was a possession drill. Yeah. It really was.
How did they handle that drill?
Well, look, it was basically, if you go on a training session set, you usually start with a passing drill. Well, actually, you'll do your warm-up, you know, stretch out a little bit. Then you do a passing drill.
It's hurt stretching.
And then
I never made it past the warm-up.
and then you have a possession drill. That possession drill, depending on where you are in the season, is probably tilted towards the starting team. That probably has an extra player and have the extra guy that plays for both teams. That's what this was for the United States. A possession drill with an extra man by design, and then the possession guy that always works with you as well, giving you 2 extra players in possession. That's what it felt like. They always had possession of the ball. They always had time and space, and they did well with that possession. Now, what I liked was the times in which you see, for example, Yunus Musa running out of the midfield with the ball. Tyler Adams did it a couple of times. You also saw Gio Reyna in the second goal, penetrating pass out of the midfield, passing the ball forward, joining in the attack. Weston McKennie joining in the attack. Now, I give them a 7 because, quite frankly, I have to take into consideration what the job demands were today, and it was very minimal. And so, therefore, my starting grade when it comes to this sort of stuff is a 7. If you do everything that you're supposed to, you stay at a 7. If you do any higher than that, then obviously I'd be congratulating you for an excellent performance. This was a good, solid, professional performance. Nothing more than that. Let's not get crazy. I think a 7 is a very acceptable grade at this point.
Herc, on the Adams impact, obviously if you're starting him after a long stretch where he's not started, you're taking a risk. You're putting him in there because you need him, because you need to see an impact. Did you feel like we saw that in the first 45 minutes? Did you notice Tyler Adams in the way you would expect to,
listen,
given
when you talk about a defensive midfielder and their impact, it's not offensive. It's not in possession. It's putting out those fires, just being hard defensively. It's being that rock there, that anchor for the back line.
Was this the game for that?
Yeah, exactly. You didn't need to be that in this game. Now, I was more worried when it came to Tyler Adams, his health. There was one point where Ali looked at me and said he's bending down, holding his leg, you know?
Yeah, he's bent over.
And he looked a little ginger
Hey,
jogging out of that, too.
And then that 2 minutes later, half is, goes to half, and he doesn't come back for the second half. You're hoping it's a minutes count. That's what I'm hoping. The worst thing that could have possibly come out of this game, believe it or not, wasn't that their confidence was shook because they couldn't score the 6-7 goals that they had available to them to score. It was that there was an injury.
Yeah.
An unnecessary injury, whether...
Edson Alvarez situation.
Exactly. Like
And I can just tell you, look, I'm not speculating here. It's not like I have any sort of news coming out of the U.S. camp. I don't have Alexis all over this. No. In the body language,
Right.
bent over a couple of times towards the end of the first half, kind of turned to the bench. The camera just kind of panned away and went a different direction. And then we saw him slowly jogging around for the final 2-3 minutes of the half.
Which is not how he operates usually.
No,
Yeah,
final 2-3 minutes of the half, and then he doesn't come out of halftime. Maybe it's precautionary. Right. Maybe it's like, hey, listen, let's take care of you. Let's not go crazy. And certainly, if you're a United States fan, that's what you want. But what if it's not? And that's, I think, the problem, that maybe he felt something, and that's why he didn't come out to the second half.
And there was some doubt. Remember, we talked to Alexis Nunez. She talked to Tyler. And in the interview with Tyler, you could hear him say, well, I think I'm 100%.
Right.
Might be different if you ask Greg. Right. So
And we spoke about
maybe
this.
he won the argument, but might have lost the war here if he actually does get hurt in this
Let's
game.
hope that's not the case. Maybe it's he, still regaining his fitness. Could be that. But we said it yesterday. Sometimes you have to save the player from themselves. The player's always going to want to be on the field.
And it's a huge, if they lose him here, it's a terrible gamble because you didn't need him against Bolivia. And imagine if you were to lose a player of this consequence for the rest of the tournament, the impact that could have.
Yeah, this is normal. This is what always happens when players are just coming back from injury. You don't want to throw them into the fire and make them play 90 minutes against a team that barely did anything. And you save him for the next game and the next 2 games, which are going to be so much more critical moving into the next rounds for the U.S., hopefully. But you can't just throw him in after not playing for a certain amount of time. You have to be careful, take care of one of your best players, and then move into the next round.
All right, so we had a 6 for the back line. We had an 8/7 for the defense. We have a 7 for the midfield in this 2-0 win over Bolivia. What about up top? Herculez Gomez.
Yeah, it's 1 to 10, right? It's 1 through 10. I don't know where you guys went to school, but it's 1 to 10, right?
Yes, yeah.
Because I know Seb comes up with E's in D.C. They gave him an E instead of an F.
I don't know what it was. In the public schools where we were, they didn't give Fs. So they would go A, B, C, D, and if you had just the worst possible grade, which I had a few of, you would get an E. Because they didn't want to hurt people's kids' feelings.
All right.
You didn't know anything.
I didn't know anything about
What?
Yeah, they don't give out Fs. I'm serious. They give out a lot of E's if you earn them, but not Fs. Yeah. It was like a
What's the
self-esteem thing.
Don't get him started.
And how did that work out for you?
I never got an F as a result.
There you
I got
go.
my self-esteem pretty high.
There you go.
All right, give us your self-esteem here on the forward.
Yeah,
Kirk.
so I would rather go individually, and I did to come up with this, but I gave him an 8. Let me explain why. So it's
Please
Christian
do.
Pulisic, it's Christian Pulisic, it's Timothy Weah, and Folarin Balogun. First off, to start off with.
Okay, you're going with the front three as your forwards. Okay.
Those are my forwards. That's what I was instructed to do.
Okay,
so those
okay.
are my forwards.
All right.
Christian Pulisic, for my liking, had a 9.
Love it.
That type
Love
of
it.
performance. He was very good. I thought Folarin Balogun and Timothy Weah were 7s. And trust me, the only reason I give Folarin Balogun a 7 is because he scored that goal. I thought he was rough, and he was taking unnecessary just risks. Like, for a guy who, to me, seems like he's low on confidence, hasn't had the greatest of years with Monaco. He was coming off a 20-plus goal season in a top 5 league in the world in France the year before. Big summer transfer window, or big move to Monaco. Doesn't go his way. You expect him to do the easy things first. A to B, then to C. Trap the ball, pass the ball, move. He's trying to do Rabonas on the sideline, kicking him out for a goal kick. He's trying to do the Ocio bounce pass to find God knows who, taking unnecessary risks where just regain your confidence, do the right things, and you'll be rewarded. Like he was rewarded with that goal. That's why he got that. And I thought Timothy Weah wasn't his usual self. Also, because of the opponent, doing things you normally wouldn't do. So I took the law averages and I came through an 8 with those two, with how good Christian Pulisic was and how average to below average the other two were.
So you had Balogun at a 7, even with the goal.
Yeah.
The other part of that equation is the guy that comes in for him,
Yeah,
Ricardo Pepi, who had a lot of chances.
Yeah, let me tell you something about Ricardo Pepi. When you're a forward, okay, if you miss the goal, if you miss opportunities, it's always a problem. But be very worried when you're not in a position to miss those opportunities. Ricardo Pepi, in the 24 minutes, 25 minutes he was on the field, had double the chances of a Folarin Balogun. And if you're Folarin Balogun, who's had countless opportunities with the U.S. men's national team, regardless of scoring a goal, that should worry you. Because Ricardo Pepi last year, coming off the bench for the U.S. men's national team, set a record. Because Haji Wright, when he steps on the field, does well for the U.S. men's national team. He's putting the ball in the back of the net, whether he's playing left wing or center forward. Because Josh Sargent was the starting 9 in the World Cup, and he's coming back into fitness. So if I'm Folarin Balogun, I'm getting a little worried. If I'm Ricardo Pepi, I want to keep staying in the same rhythm to get those opportunities, but now you need to finish them.
This is what I heard there. First of all, glass half full when it comes to Ricardo Pepi. Absolutely glass half full. Because I'm sure that he's not feeling the same way that you are. Hey, I was in great position. Look, if you have 4 opportunities to score and you don't, even if it is in limited minutes, you're going to feel it as a striker. The second thing I heard there is like, nobody wants to start as a striker because apparently the one that's coming off the bench is getting more chances than the guys who are actually starting. So you're better off coming off the bench for this team than you actually being on the field from the beginning of the match. That doesn't make any sense.
Casey,
Just saying.
Did Balogun do enough in this game to earn a second start in this tournament for you against Panama?
Well, I think Balogun's been playing simply because the lack of other people have stepped up and taken advantage of the opportunities that they've gotten. And also, I think Greg made a big, when he made a big push to Balogun to commit to the United States, I think he feels obligated to make sure that he plays so he doesn't lose him mentally. But I still think that if somebody comes on the pitch, to Ollie's point, and does the job, I don't think it's a real push if Balogun ends up on the bench, because I think consistently he hasn't really performed, particularly against the better opponents where you think, okay, there's a threat. Now, there's something in limited opportunities which we're going to see as this tournament progresses. You mentioned it against Uruguay, where possibly there will be significantly fewer chances to score. But what you always want to be is you want to be that threat. You want to know if you're a team that is going to have 40% possession, that your striker can run off a shoulder, run past somebody, and scare them, and be an opportunity to beat somebody on the counterattack. And I just don't see that often enough from Balogun. I see him score like he did, where it was, not a great performance in the first half. Okay, picks the ball up, hits it through a defender's legs, and a nice, tidy finish. But yeah, I need to see more of a threat consistently, because particularly when you're playing against the better opponents, you're not going to have chance after chance or opportunities to make as many mistakes as possible in that final third.
All right, so Balogun gets the start today, and the goal is the United States beats Bolivia in Copa America Group C action. Casey Keller, as always, great to have you with us here on Futbol Americas. We will see you throughout our coverage in the coming weeks. Good time to remind you that Futbol Americas will be on quite a bit in the coming weeks, including later on tonight. Again, that's right, a double dose of Futbol Americas. The Photoshoppers are busy. Had to get Shock out of there and his knapsack that he was in. Now it'll just be the four of us later on tonight on ESPN Plus after the Uruguay-Panama match.
I like that shirt. I'm not going to lie to you. I like that shirt.